Hi everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into our live today. I'm just going to wait for a few more of you to join. Let's see. Yes, in true fashion to today's event, I spent the last 10 minutes styling my little baby hairs that are coming in still 4 years out from chemo. And, I was going to come here with a filter on, but I figured you don't need that from me. So I'm just going to keep it real. Let's see. Let's have Laura join. Okay, Laura, I just invited you to join as a host. Wait for you to come on.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you? Looking beautiful.
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Lovely. You look great.
Thank you. So do you.
Thank you. Are you at your studio or
I am. You can kind of see a little bit.
where the magic happens?
Yes. I'm excited for this.
I'm so excited too. Thank you so much.
I've been talking about this for months, and now it's finally here.
Yeah, I know we've been going back and forth on our schedules. I feel like everyone's just getting so busy with things opening back up, but I'm so glad we made the time for this. I really want to share first why we chose May, even aside from the scheduling issue. When it came down to it, we decided to go with this topic in May because this is actually the anniversary month of when I shaved my head 4 years ago for my own chemo journey. And so, I just shared, I think, a few minutes ago in stories about how being in active treatment and losing your hair gets so much attention because it's the thing that everyone sees, and it's the thing that is kind of the indication that you might be sick. But once active treatment passes and your hair starts to grow back, everyone just looks at you and assumes that you're okay, you're totally fine, it's time to move on, no problem. And so I want to say for our entire community that that's just definitely not the truth. Growing your hair back from being bald as an adult is such a bizarre experience that I think none of us ever thought we would have, and yet we're having it. And so I figured, why not give that the spotlight and talk about how we can make the most of that experience. And I couldn't think of a better person than you. You wrote this amazing blog post for us talking about the different phases of hair regrowth, which I encourage everyone to not just read, but also save in their phones or maybe take some screenshots. Keep it in mind as you are kind of going through your regrowth and going to the salon. And I'm sure we'll reiterate on that later. But I am so happy that you're here. And I want to share with everyone first how we initially met, because I thought that was such a fun. Just before the pandemic. I was actually in DC walking for a benefit fashion show for Runway to the Cure. And it was my first time walking since diagnosis. And I was wearing this red jumpsuit that I think caught Laura's eye. And she came over to me afterwards and we connected on the fashion, and we just basically sparked a friendship. And so here we are years later, supporting each other and helping each other. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. I feel blessed.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what makes you an expert on this topic.
So I've been a hairstylist for a very long time. I started doing hair when I was, actually when I was a teenager, of course. In high school, I was testing things out on myself. That's where my journey began with hair. And then I have been doing it ever since. So I have been through my own experience with cancer, but it was very minimal compared to what your experience was. I did not happen to have to go through chemo. They caught it very early, and it was diagnosed and then treated within several months. But it was still a frightening experience for me because I had seen several friends go through things. And I also lost my mom to ovarian cancer. And I've been touched by a lot of family members that have had breast cancer. So, yeah, so that's basically where I'm coming from. And my experience with this has been that it is very scary on so many levels. You know, there's so many different things that you go through. And obviously when you're talking about being a woman and losing your hair, it's just so important to us. It's part of our femininity. It's part of what makes us feel, in my mind anyway, what makes us feel like a woman. So I feel really blessed that you've allowed me to be a part of this. So
Yeah, thank you. And you know what? I love that you have taken all these experiences that you've had around you and in your own life, and you're kind of using that to give back in a way where it's really, as you said, it's really meaningful because it's a big part of the way we see ourselves. And when we see ourselves in a positive light, in a light that has strength and empowerment, it really makes a difference in our recovery. So that's really, really important. And, you know, recovery does include after treatment too. So that's what this is about. So let's kick it off. Before we kind of get into your approach to the regrowth phase, I want to ask just like a few primer questions. So we're going to be talking a lot about going to the salon, and I want to know if we're, you know, getting to that point where we are about to have hair regrowth, what are some ideas that you have to keep in mind, whether it's like tools or other tips to make your salon visit successful each time you go?
So I'm glad you asked that. It's super helpful for both you as the customer and also for your stylist to have some sort of a hair journey. And I know that can be difficult because as a customer, you're thinking, well, you know, you're going through all these things and all these different emotions, but not to minimize that, but part of feeling, I believe, from what I've heard from my customers, and after talking with you, I feel that it brings that person empowerment to come in and be able to say, this is kind of where I'd like to end up. Whether it's back to where you were pre, you know, your treatments, and or if it's just that you're going for a new style eventually, but having a beginning and an end really helps to have control, I think. So with that said, I feel that it's important to bring in as many pictures as you can because we are visual, and we can, you know, help you get to where you'd like to be by explaining the different stages and kind of walking you through that, and then setting up a plan. Whether it's, you know, every 3 weeks, because usually in the beginning when your hair starts to grow, you're not going to get it cut for a while, but then you may need just a little tweaking here and there as it's growing. And I think that's important for your stylist to know where you're at and to help you to have that plan set ahead.
Yeah, and you know, I think a lot of us hear stories about how when hair grows back, it can sometimes grow back different from what you had before. And that's okay. You know, everyone's hair journey is different. Everyone's hair journey is unique. And so your hair might start to grow back one way and it might change texture. I think as far as the inspiration photos go, I think it's still important to have something to go off of because even if your hair is changing as you go along, it's still important to know for yourself and for your stylist what attracts you, what you think is a nice looking hairstyle, what you would be into. So I think it's still important, even though you might experience some changes. And another thing that I think is a common thing I hear in our community is, do I cut my hair or not? Because for a lot of women who have gone through this really traumatic experience of losing all of their hair to chemo, having to shave their head, most of us, we are very hesitant and very triggered to go back under the scissor, if you will, or the shears, and to go through that experience of losing hair again. So even if it's in an intentional way. So how would you encourage someone, because I know doing this, you can actually, you know, access like a look that is much more you. So what would you say about that?
So I think that's such an important point for, again, to be talking about that with your stylist. And um, given that you have a relationship, hopefully, with this particular stylist that you're going to,
Yeah.
they will understand and they know you. I think that's super helpful because it is a relationship
Sure.
and it's someone that you're trusting to take care of you, basically.
Yeah.
To guide you in the right direction as you're going through this. And I feel that it's important to be able to express that the concerns that you have, which are, I know I need to do something, but I'm nervous because I don't want you to cut everything off that I've just, gained
Yeah.
back after something so traumatic. So I feel that it's really important to be explaining, even just having the conversation.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's going to be a huge um, change every time you go. And in the very beginning, it may just be very subtle changes, but
Mhm.
you're still having a plan. And whether that is for some women, it's I need to see her every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
or I need to see her every 3 weeks, or whatever the length of time is. And it will vary as you go through the different stages of the regrowth. And again, back to your point earlier about the fact that your texture may change.
Yeah.
Um, those things are also important so that your stylist can help you figure out what styling products you need during that time. If there
Mhm.
are changes as far as like suddenly curly, or
Yeah.
it may be suddenly straight, it could be gray. There are all these different factors that could come
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I love that you touched on it being a tool to kind of take back your power and control over your look. And I think that's so true. I really encourage everyone to observe that principle from the beginning through to the end. Because you can, even though your hair is going through changes that you can't necessarily control from the root, you can certainly put your own mark on that process. And another tip I'm going to share that I actually didn't think of when I was going through this, that my good friend Dr. Alexia has shared with me, is that you can actually ask for flexibility if you have a relationship with your stylist, or maybe if you're going to a salon that is specializes in helping cancer patients. You can ask, hey, can I come in a time where it's not so busy? Can I come in
Yeah.
a little bit before, a little bit after opening, or can I see you privately?
Yes.
Ask for it, because you know what? If that's what makes you comfortable, then you need to kind of create that safe space for yourself. And I'm sure you're not going to be the first person who's asked that question.
Definitely. No,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to get into your kind of talking a little bit about that blog post you wrote for us. You
Yeah.
had a three-phased approach, and I love that. So tell me what those three phases are and just why you approach it that way when it comes to regrowth.
Yes. So my approach is for most women, they're trying to grow it out to a certain length. So I believe that you should have some sort of gauge, like we mentioned earlier, where you're going to go from most women. And again, this is not everyone, but it's generally like goes short to medium to long, and it is individualized per customer, of course. Like if someone just likes to have a pixie and they want to stay with a pixie, I mean, then we don't have to worry as much about that. But for most women, I've found they really do have like a certain length that is their ultimate goal, that would be their longest version.
Yeah.
So as I'm going through those stages, I like to have the short styles and then the medium styles and then the long styles, so that we both have an understanding of what direction we're going in. So as the stylist, I know how to cut their hair moving
Yeah.
forward and how to help them again with styling products, and then eventually possibly coloring the hair. That's another possibility down the road. It's not necessarily right away. Some women do want to do it right away, but there's a lot of different things that might come up with that as well.
What would you, I mean, I definitely wanted to touch on this topic with you because it's a popular one about hair coloring. So,
Yes.
and I know there's not really like a definite right or wrong answer to this, but how long would you wait, or how long would you recommend waiting before dyeing your hair with like newly regrown hair?
So I would say again, it is personal preference, and it also depends on their diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
as in they're still taking um, some sort of chemicals or
Mm-hmm.
medicines that can affect the color. So that's also something
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be discussed with your
That's very
stylist.
interesting.
Important question to
Yeah.
ask. And as much information as you as a customer can bring
Yeah.
um, to your stylist as to what types of medications you're on, that type of thing.
Mm.
It will help them also in trying to determine what would work best on your hair, because there are lots of different options. You could be lightening your hair, you could be
Yeah.
coloring it, you could be coloring it with a semi-permanent, a demi-permanent, and there are different reasons for the different
Yeah.
types of coloring. Um,
Okay.
so, and there are non-ammonia colors, that type of stuff. I mean, those are things that are related to the chemicals that are on the hair as opposed to chemicals that you're putting on the hair, excuse me, and also what chemicals are coming out of the hair, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
okay.
Because the hair has a journey of its own.
Sure. Okay. So that's definitely information that I think everyone can consider, especially regarding the medications, because depending on what your diagnosis is and what your long-term treatment plan is, you may be on medication for 6 months, you may be on medication for 10 years, like I am. So,
Mhm.
and I don't think everything will affect your color the way maybe perhaps chemo might, but it's still something worthwhile to consider. I know it's definitely a factor, for example, with microblading. I've heard like if you're on Herceptin, like I was, you don't retain the color as well in your skin. So it's definitely, I think that's such a great inside tip is to consider how that might affect your hair color. And another question that we had from our community, and I think you touched on this earlier, is just like if your hair is growing back, how soon should you actually go and see a stylist? What would you recommend as like a good starting point for that?
That's a good question. I would say, and I apologize for constantly saying this, like it's such a personal thing,
Yeah.
but it really is. So I've had women come in as soon as a month. I've had them come in after like a couple of weeks. Um, just it depends on how quickly the hair is growing back, and also what type of I would say what type of hair is growing back in, if you're
Yeah.
concerned because it's growing back a different color or it's coming back a different texture. Um, but generally speaking, I would say you're looking normally, I would say I see women within about 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
And sometimes it's a little sooner than that. But again, you're going from like no hair to some hair, and then it's got to go through different phases.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to say. I know that's a really
Yeah.
important question, but I
I
would
mean,
say,
it's definitely personal, and I think we
yeah,
all kind of get to that point where we realize like the hair is getting is it's taking on a life of its own, and it might need some outside help. So I think if you're waiting to find out when you might need to go, I think the opportunity will present itself. Let's just put it that way.
right. And
And like, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that I think that it's, again, if you have a great relationship with your stylist,
Yeah.
they are going to be more than willing and understanding,
Yeah.
and they will get you in as soon as you feel ready. And
Yeah.
I feel that that is also a conversation I've had with a lot of my customers that have gone through this, that
Okay.
I always try to encourage them, like reach out to me anytime. If you
Yeah.
feel like you really need to come and see me, just come and see me and we'll make time.
I
So
love that. I love that. Yeah, I mean, your hairstylist is really kind of your ally in the process, and I love that you kind of encourage people to see it that way too. So, on a particular styling question, so the pixie is kind of the first stop that we all find ourselves at with our hair regrowth. And the pixie itself it's always seemed like a very vintage style to me by nature. It's something that got popularized in the 1950s with Audrey Hepburn, most notably. And we all kind of go through that phase where we get the hair back and we just sweep it to the side. And it kind of takes on that vintage form. But what if we want to be more contemporary with the pixie? How do we do that? How do we kind of modernize it and make it a little bit more unique or maybe unexpected?
I find that I know exactly what you're talking about, and I love the sort of PC sort of either like with a little bit of the side curls. But then I also love, like, if someone's a little bit more edgy, a little more modern, then they might make it a little more PC with something like a matte paste.
Yeah.
I find that texture sprays, pastes, some gels are really good too for that sort of style. It's giving it a little bit more control.
Yeah.
And showing a little bit more of the individual pieces.
Yeah.
That's what I tend to lean towards. There are lots of different product lines out there that offer those. One of my favorites is Maria Nila. It's a fantastic line, and they have lots of different options with those. And I like them because they are very natural based. And I know that that's something that's very important to a lot of women afterwards.
Yeah.
They want to stay with something a little bit more organic,
Yeah.
in products.
Yeah, and it's also considering like what's actually happening to you is it's almost like you're getting baby hairs at that point, right? It's like
Right.
brand new hair, and it's always a good idea to at least have some natural products in there, maybe try to phase a few in and just try it out and see how it goes. And I guess the other question I have, I think the most menacing experience that we have during regrowth is actually not the pixie, but the mullet.
Yes.
It's when the hair is like still short here, but then the back is like turning
It's
into a tail.
long and yeah.
We've all been there. It's the worst. I mean, sometimes you're able to kind of like, I don't know, I wore a turban a lot and I would kind of, as you said, take out the curls and style it up a bit. And I was able to like conceal it and like do different things with it. But I wish I had spent more time actually creating something intentional, and doing something with that length or maybe styling it differently. So what would you recommend to someone who's entering that phase, and how to make kind of the most of it there?
So there's something right now that's kind of a version of the mullet, and forgive me, but it's called the wolf cut. And I know that that's kind of getting to be a little bit of a longer version, but that particular style is very in right now.
Okay.
And yeah, and I would say that you can definitely avoid the mullet, because if your stylist is aware of the concerns, like some people embrace it, and I'm all for it. If you're super edgy and you're comfortable with it, I think you can totally rock it. It's all personal preference. And again, texture sprays are so helpful. Dry shampoos, using a flat iron, and I know that that's another thing I'm sure we'll touch on is heat products. And I highly recommend that everyone is using heat protectant. I mean, that's absolutely number one, no matter what. But yes, so you could use a flat iron. There are many crimpers that are really fun to work with. And I know that volume becomes a concern as well. But instead of a mullet, you can do something where it's kind of like a very short shag, where the bottom stays, it's got a little bit of length, but it's not as long as we've seen in the post that you put in. But styling the top and working with the layers there, and then blending the bottom is really key.
Okay. And so basically, that would involve maybe trimming down the mullet until everything else is kind of at the length that matches up what's going on at the nape. Okay.
Yes.
I
So
like that idea.
a shag is kind of, and there are different lengths of shags, but there's the short shag, which is really cute, that you can definitely do that.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. I like that look. And I like the idea of using different styling tools to kind of get just different dimensions out of what length you're working with.
Yes.
Because that could also help you feel like, you're dressing up differently. You're kind of doing
Yes.
more for yourself. You're exploring your look a bit. So I like that a lot. And would you recommend? I've seen a number of heat products, and I just kind of bought a new one to try out. I saw a lot of heat products that said, or heat protectant products that said up to like 400 degrees protection or
Right.
450, something like that. That's kind of the standard, right? That's what we should be
Correct.
going for. Okay, good. Good.
I would. I just want to touch on that really quick because a lot of people think that, that, oh, I can heat my hair up to 450 degrees. And most of us agree as stylists that you should not be using that high of a heat. It should be probably between 350 and 400 at the most.
Okay.
So just something to be aware of.
Yeah.
Someone wrote something. Do you want to touch
Yeah,
on that?
I think it's a question about the hair regrowth, and they're saying that their hair is kind of growing back a little bit funny, and they want to know if you have a cream or other sort of product recommendation.
Yes. So it's growing back. I'm just trying to see. Sorry. Okay. Your hair is growing back in a funny way. Okay. Maria Neela, again, I really like their products. And I'm trying to understand. It looks like she's going through something where it's a little frizzy, possibly, and that's why maybe
Mhm.
she's asking about a cream. Um, in fact, I'm gonna just recommend. There's Curly Q cream. I'm just gonna grab it really quick.
Sure.
Um, so this one, if you can see it, I really like this one. It's kind of between a gel and a cream, but then I also have something that's a little bit more emollient, and that's their styling cream.
Okay. I
Um,
love that.
yeah, and they smell amazing. But I definitely think that is a good place to start, especially because you're dealing with lots of different textures. Like parts of your hair might be straight, some parts might be curly, some parts might just be wavy
Yeah.
or frizzy. Um, and using a heat protectant, and then also, and all of their products, by the way, are
Yeah.
heat protectant, but using a heat protectant and or some sort of cream, and then a heating tool
Yeah.
is also going to be really helpful, because the heat tool, like your small flat iron
Mhm.
or something like that, actually does help. Now,
Yeah.
she also mentioned she wants to know about the healthy scalp. So there are several brands that I would recommend. Milbon, I'm going to just grab that. I believe that their products are excellent. It's Milbon Scalp, and they have several different options, but this is a daily leave-in scalp moisturizer. Again, you're probably going to be going through testing a lot of products out. Hopefully not too many, but the reason why I say that is sometimes there are chemical reactions. Again, you're dealing with a lot of chemicals within your body, so there may be a reaction to some of the products that you use, and you want something that is soothing.
Yeah.
And even sometimes the soothing products might still be irritants, but
Yeah.
that's a good place to start. And then again, Maria Neela has, they have a heal, it's for head, it's called Head and Hair Heal Shampoo. I'm going to grab that too.
So Laura will be sharing all of these products with us, and we'll be updating her blog post with all these products. It already has a link to our Amazon storefront with all the products she's recommended in the blog, but these are new things that she's been sort of like, incorporating into her clients' routines, and I definitely want to update that for you all. So don't worry about taking notes. We'll update the blog post, and if you're on our email list, we'll email you when it's updated. Most likely we'll update it by tonight,
Yes.
and then send that out just so you guys can kind of have a handy, when you're shopping, whether it's online shopping, you can shop through our Amazon storefront, or you can, take the list with you and maybe go to your local Target or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If there are any questions,
Yeah.
obviously please send them my way, and I can help give them links to the products if they can't find them on Amazon. And then this is their Head and Heel shampoo, and then their conditioner. It's just wonderful. I've had really positive reviews from people. But again, back to her question, Milbon is an excellent option because it's really, I've gotten so much positive feedback, and it's very soothing and calming and refreshes the scalp.
That's wonderful. I like those options. And
You're
another thing that I really leaned on when I was kind of going through all the different phases, and even now, is just if I know if I know I have like a little bit of time on my hands, I will just kind of warm up a little bit of coconut oil and just kind of rub it into my scalp. That is really such a wonderful solution as well, because the coconut oil has some anti-inflammatory properties. It's very moisturizing, and then also doing that massage brings the oxygen up to the follicles and also helps create really wonderful blood flow and the flow of nutrients up to the scalp. And that is really something that I think I would recommend everyone to do it throughout your treatment, because it can really prepare you for a healthy regrowth. And if your hair is already growing back, it will only help you from there as well. So definitely keep that in mind. And I also just wanted to just ask a quick question about the heat styling that we talked about. What is kind of a good cap as far as like the frequency of heat styling that one could do in a week before, you should sort of cut yourself off?
So again, I think if you have very fine, and sometimes their hair will grow back very fine, I wouldn't recommend doing it too often, and definitely lower heat. Stay on the lower end of the heat spectrum. The lower the heat, the better your hair is going to stay intact. And then also, I would just say, if you can do it only maybe once or twice a week, that's ideal. And everyone's hair is going to be different, but the finer the hair, I'd say, the more I would be a little bit cautious about using heat. And again, it over time, hopefully the hair will get stronger. But that's just I hope that answers your question. That's my.
I think that's good. I mean, we all kind of, everyone's different, but I think it helps to have some sort of like a standard in mind, because, otherwise you can kind of get carried away with it. And
absolutely,
there are certain weeks where even when I have events, I find myself doing that. And I know that I should probably ease up the following week, maybe do an oil massage, do something to treat my hair. So you can always like balance out if you kind of, end up doing more than you wished you had. And so I want to actually just move on to our third phase of hair regrowth. And so we touched on this earlier about the fact that hair can change textures and style over time. So what should you do if your hair is changing texture over time, if you're going from curly to straight to curly, somewhere in between? I know I have naturally curly hair, and my hair came back curly, but I think it came back a different texture, and it also changed as the longer that it got. And that's something that I know is a very common experience. So what would you recommend as far as like if your hair is changing texture during regrowth?
So as it changes, as you notice the texture changing, you're going to want to change your products, and that may require adding more moisture treatments, or possibly like an Olaplex treatment, which is like a protein bonding treatment. And that is another excellent option that your stylist may be able to offer for you. I'm sure that most salons do have some sort of a bond building product that they can recommend. And that will also help with your protective, heat protectant, that sort of thing.
How do you know, sorry, I want to interject. How do you know if your hair needs more protein? Because I didn't really know about that concept until I started really deep diving after my hair grew back. And that's something that I think maybe a lot of people might not know about. So how do you know if your hair needs protein versus, I think moisture, you said, right? The two.
Yes, those are the two that are most important.
Mhm.
Um, Protein is tricky. You can never really add too much moisture, but you can add too much protein.
Mm, okay.
So you do have to consult your stylist with that, and they should be able to monitor it. But what happens usually is the hair will get very thin
Mm,
and very fragile.
mm,
So
okay.
that's definitely when you need protein.
Okay.
Whereas it's just dry and maybe frizzy, that's usually where you're looking at needing more
Wow.
moisture.
Okay. Super helpful. Super, super helpful. Okay, so I like that. It's a good job to kind of consult your stylist as you go along, maybe change up your products,
Yes.
and perhaps even tweak your cut a bit just to complement your face a bit more.
Yes.
And so long term, as our hair grows back and when we're kind of becoming less concerned perhaps with styling it, as you know, the constant changes stop happening, it's like growing out, it's like lengthening, it's kind of, you know, coming into itself. What do you recommend at that point as far as healthy habits or other sort of practices to keep in mind to keep your hair growing strong and healthy moving forward?
I would say moving forward, it's really important to continue to do the scalp massages. I would do that for
Mm,
yourself.
yeah.
You can also go to a salon and have it done, which is wonderful.
Yes.
It's kind of like a facial for your scalp.
Yeah.
And
So
I
fun. Yeah.
continue, yeah,
I love it.
everybody
Yeah.
loves that. Let's just rub my head. It makes me
Yeah, it's actually the thing that I had done immediately after I shaved my head 4 years ago.
good.
You know, they actually gave me a shampoo, like a shampoo wash on my head, and they like massaged my head, and it was such a lovely, humanizing moment for
Yeah.
me because I just felt so taken care of, even with no hair on my head. I just felt like so pampered with that one experience. And the salon that I went to is called The Hair Place. It's in Manhattan, in case anyone is watching and needs a recommendation for salon that helps patients. But that was just fantastic. And you know, you could go to anyone, you know,
Yes.
your stylist or anyone new, and recommend that. And I think that's something definitely to treat yourself to, no matter how long your hair is, how long or how short. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then also doing like um, other treatments for the hair itself, like an
Yeah.
Olaplex treatment, like a protein treatment or a moisture treatment. Hair masks, you can do that at home as well. And I would continue doing those at least again once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Just keeping up with that will help to keep your hair as healthy as possible. And
Yeah.
also just paying attention to always using a heat protectant, always using the lowest heat level that you can. Like you start out low, and if that doesn't do it, then you start to use a little bit more heat, like a higher heat. And then once you get to the point where it actually will create, let's say, a curl or will straighten, that's when you know that's where your limit is. I hope that
Yeah.
helps as well with that question you had earlier.
Yeah, no, that's definitely very helpful. And I think those are all the questions that I had had myself and questions that we got from the community. Is there anything else that you wanted to say as like a last word?
I just would, again, I'd like to say that I really want to encourage everyone to feel comfortable talking to your stylist and creating that relationship with them where it's a journey that you're taking together. And I'm sure that it's like any relationship. I feel communication is really important, and being able
Hmm.
to say what you need
Yeah,
is going to also help your stylist to give you what you need,
yeah,
because every single person that sits in our chair is different, and we want to give them what they need,
yeah,
not just a general like, oh, you're just you're coming in for a haircut. No, I
yeah,
mean, being and you're valuable, and what you need is going to be different from what someone else needs. So
yeah.
just
I
want to
love
encourage.
that. I love that. It's so beautiful and it's so meaningful because it's really a time to sort of start writing the next chapter of your look. And you know, your stylist, like I said earlier, is your ally in this process, and can really make all the difference with that open communication and doing, just having an idea, knowing really what you want, and kind of being
Yeah.
open and honest about that. So I love that. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
coming on.
Thanks for
We
having
don't,
me.
yeah, this was a lot of fun. I have to be honest. We don't do lives very often, and it's something that's new for me. And I had such a fun time talking to you about this, and I just feel like I should be doing this more often for everyone here. So um, that's that was definitely nice, and I
Yeah.
hope we get to hang out in person again soon.
I know. I
This
know.
is really fun. And I'm actually about to head outside. It's a beautiful day here in Greenwich, and I'm going to film our spring and summer 22 turban style report
Love it.
to kind of give you a peek about what all new styles are coming out this summer. So this is one of the new styles
Love it.
that is coming next week.
They're gorgeous, by the way.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
love
I
them.
really wanted to do a contemporary take on flowers, on florals for the warmer months, because we all kind of have seen like the very abundantly floral fabrics that
Yeah.
we all get to wear in the sundresses and so on. But I wanted to do something, that's a little bit of a different twist on it. So this is one of the pieces, and I can't wait to share the rest with you guys too. So
Great.
I'm going to go film that, and I'm going to update our blog post on our website at stylistine.com with all of Laura's tips that are already there. We'll also post the video so you can kind of have it right under the blog post, and we'll also update all of her product recommendations to our Amazon storefront, and whatever can't be updated there, we'll kind of include it in the post itself, so you can still track it down by name and company.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks
All right.
so much. Always, always wonderful to see you. You look beautiful.
You too. Thank you. You too. It's so nice to see you, and I'm sure we'll be doing more together soon. So have a good one, and thank you everyone for joining, and see you soon.
Bye, honey.
Bye.